Hello, everybody. My name is Tyler Russo, and this is the KO Podcast, episode number 31. In this episode, I will be reviewing UFC Fight Night Andrade vs. Blanchfield. And then this weekend, we have UFC Fight Night Krylov vs. Spann. And we also have Bellator 291. All the way from Dublin, Ireland. So we got a jam-packed weekend of mixed martial arts. Also, this Friday, one is going to be on Amazon Prime Video. Ring that bell! All right, let's get into this Andrade versus Blanchfield card. Kicking off this card, we had Clayton Carpenter getting a first-round submission. This guy, he is shredded. That's one of the first things I noticed. He's in terrific shape, he wins his UFC debut, so congratulations to Clayton Carpenter. Moving on, we got a welterweight bout. We got AJ Fletcher taking on Thabima Gorimbo. I believe that's how you say his name. And AJ Fletcher gets the second round submission. He finally gets his first UFC win. So, a big win for AJ Fletcher. Probably he was fighting for his job in this fight. So, he got the win. Hopefully he stays in the UFC. Moving on, we had a light heavyweight bout. We had Ovince St. Preux taking on Felipe Lins. And Felipe Lins just torches OSP in 49 seconds. OSP, he went to go throw a kick, and Felipe Lins got him with a hook right to the chin, and he just never fully recovered from it. And, he was backing up for most of this fight, as long as it lasted. He never, like I said, really recovered from that hook, and he eventually gets finished. Moving on, we had a featherweight bout. We had Jamal Emmers taking on Askivov, who was 23-0 going into this fight, but Jamal Emmers gets the decision victory and gives him a 1 in that loss column. Moving on, we had a women's bantamweight bout. We had Lena Landsberg taking on Maria Bruno Silva, and Bruno Silva gets the submission victory over Landsberg. It was a knee bar, I believe, submission, and Lena Landsberg retires after this fight. Congratulations on a great career, Lena Landsberg. I hope, all is well in your retirement. Moving on, we had a great fight at lightweight. We had Nazim Sediokov taking on Evan Elder. And what a fight this was. It was a back-and-forth war. But unfortunately, in the third round, the doctors stop it due to a cut on Evan Edler. It's very interesting because Evan Edler was leading on the scorecards, I believe, before this fight was stopped due to his cut. The doctor stopped it. So Nazim Sediokov gets the TKO finish in the third round. I hope these two guys run it back. It was the best, fight of the night, in my opinion. These guys just went to war. So, I would love to see a rematch with these two. Now, moving on to the main card, kicking it off, we had a lightweight bout. We had Jim Miller taking on Alexander Hernandez, and Alexander Hernandez gets the decision victory. He was in need of a win coming into this fight, and he knocks off the legend Jim Miller. Really good performance by Alexander Hernandez. Jim Miller's face was a bloody mess by the end of it, but Jim Miller is one tough, guy to get out of there. So Alexander Hernandez gets that decision win. Moving on, we had a light heavyweight bout. We had William Knight taking on Marcin Pracchio, and I'm not really sure what William Knight's game plan was. He He didn't really throw anything, and his legs were really beat up in this fight. Proxino really went after William Knight's legs. Maybe that's why he was not really throwing anything, and it just looked like he couldn't really get a read on Proxino. Proxino gets the decision win. Moving on, we had a heavyweight bout. We had Josh Parisian taking on Jamal Pogues, and Jamal Pogues gets the decision victory. He wins his UFC debut. Moving on, we had a light heavyweight bout in the co-main event. We had Jordan Wright taking on Zach Pauga, and I thought this fight was not going to last out of the first round, but I was wrong. This fight goes to a decision, and Zach Pauga gets the decision victory. This fight was, a lot in the clinch, and Jordan Wright just didn't really get, Pauga didn't really let Jordan Wright have the space to throw his attacks, his kicks, and, he's got really good straight punches right. But Zach Pauga gets, that win, and, it seems like he's going to stay at light heavyweight. This is his natural weight class. He took the opportunity of the Ultimate Fighter and went up to heavyweight. So now he's back in his natural class. Really excited to see what he does with that. Moving on, we had the main event of the evening. We had a women's flyweight bout. We had Jessica Andrade taking on Erin Blanchfield. And what did I say? Erin Blanchfield with the second round submission. I mean, hey, Blanchfield is the real deal. When you hang with Andrade and when you submit Andrade, I mean, that's just, she passed this test with an A+. She, stuck around on the feet with Andrade. She didn't take, she was able to avoid those big shots from Jessica Andrade, and Erin Blanchfield just, takes down Andrade and gets that submission victory. In my opinion, after Valentina Shevchenko defends her title against Alexa Grasso, or if Grasso wins that, I think Erin Blanchfield should get the winner of that fight. She deserves it. UFC, you have a star in this women's flyweight division. She's only 23. So, I mean, give her a shot at this title. I think she's done everything she's needed to do. She's passed all her tests with flying colors. And I'm just really excited to see Erin Blanchfield and what is her next step. Now, let's get to UFC Fight Night, Krylov versus Spann. All right, taking a look at this card, starting off the night, we have a bantamweight bout. We have Jose Johnson, straight off of the Contender Series. He's making his UFC debut against Garrett Armfield. Moving on, we have a women's bantamweight bout. We have Haley Cowan making her UFC debut, also a Dana White Contender Series alum. She is taking on Elin Perez. Moving on, we have a lightweight bout. We have Rafael Alves, who is always exciting, always dancing. He's always moving in the octagon. He's taking on Norilo Alev, I believe that's how you say his name, and he is also making his UFC debut off of the Contender Series as well. So we got three straight bouts with Contender Series alum looking to get their first win. So interested to see if those Contender Series alum can get those debut wins. Moving on, we got a lightweight bout. We have Joe Silic taking on Carl Deaton. We have a catchweight bout, at least that's how it's listed here. We have Odie Osborne taking on Charles Johnson. That should be a fun fight. Both guys are pretty entertaining in their fight styles. Moving on, we have a lightweight bout. We got Jordan Levitt taking on Victor Martinez. And Victor Martinez is another Dana White's Contender Series alum trying to win in his UFC debut. Then moving on, we got a women's flyweight bout. We have Jasmine Juvickas, I believe that's how you say her last name. And we have Gabriela Fernandez. Now, moving on to the main card. Kicking off that main card, we got a lightweight bout. We have Eric Gonzalez taking on Trevor Peek. And again, Trevor Peek, Dana White Contender Series alum. He is making his UFC debut. So, a big theme here of, Dana White Contender Series alums trying to get their first UFC wins. So, it's going to be a very interesting night on that aspect. Moving on, we have a welterweight bout. We have Mike Malak taking on Johan Linus. And Mike Malak had a crazy KO in his UFC debut against, I believe it was, I'm blanking on his name, but I definitely know his name. Mickey Gall. That's who it was. He had a crazy finish of Mickey Gall in his UFC debut. So, he looks like an exciting fighter. Moving on, we have a women's flyweight bout. We have Tatiana Suarez taking on Montana De La Rosa, and Tatiana Suarez is making her return to the octagon. She has not fought since 2019. She's 9-0, and before injuries kind of hampered her, she was on a title run, and she looks to continue a run to the title. Once she gets this fight out of the way, I believe she said she's moving back down to strawweight. So this is a fight to get her back in the swing of things. I'm hoping that Tatiana Suarez can pick up right where she left off. She finished Carla Esparza, and she's an amazing wrestler. And I cannot wait to watch Tatiana Suarez fight. I have not seen her fight live. Wasn't really involved in the sport, when she fought last. So excited to see her showcase her skills. Moving on, we got a heavyweight bout. We have Augusto Sakai taking on Dontel Mays. Sakai really on a bad streak right now. I believe he's lost at least 4 in a row, I believe, and he's gotten finished in all of them. He's lost a lot in a row, and he's looking to get back on track. And Dontel Mays, his last fight he lost, but then it got overturned due to his opponent testing positive for banned substances. So that loss moves to a no contest. So interesting to see how these two, go at each other. Moving on, we have a middleweight bout in the co-main event of the evening. We have Andre Muniz taking on Brandon Allen. Andre Muniz is a submission ace. He is a armbar specialist. If you recall, he broke Jacare Souza's arm, which is an insane thing to do when you think about how good Jacare is at jiu-jitsu and all grappling and stuff. And for Muniz to break his arm is crazy, and that just shows what level his grappling skills are on. So Brandon Allen's really going to have to watch out for his slick submissions. Brandon Allen, he's got good stand-up. But Andre Muniz, I believe he's gonna make a run at this middleweight title at some point. He's been working his way up in the rankings. His submission game is just on another level. So I'm gonna take Muniz to win this fight by submission. Moving on, we have the main event of the evening. We have a light heavyweight bout. We got Nikita Krylov taking on Ryan Superman Spann. And Nikita Krylov, a fast starter. He is deadly with his kicks, his punches. He's all action, very aggressive. And we got Spann coming off a huge victory against Dominic Reyes. He put him out bad. He stunned him with a really good jab, and he connected, I believe it was like the side of his head with a vicious hook, and that's really what stiffened Dominic Reyes. Spann, he's also got a really good guillotine submission game. So you definitely need to watch out for that. This fight, I'm going to take Nikita Krylov to win this fight. I think he's going to overwhelm Spann in the first round. We've seen Spann kind of get overwhelmed a little bit in the first round. I believe Johnny Walker finished him in the first round, if I'm remembering correctly. I just think Krylov, he's going to have a lot of weapons to finish this fight with. But Spann, he has really, really good straight punches. That's what I've noticed from him. Again, that guillotine. So if Krylov hurts him and jumps in his guard, Spann's going to try to use that guillotine. So this should be a fun, fast-paced main event. I hope this is a banger of a fight. Now let's move on to Bellator. All right, taking a look at this Bellator 291 card. It's, of course, as I said earlier, in Dublin, Ireland, so they're going to have a lot of Irish, mixed martial artists here to represent Ireland. Looking at the prelims, I'm going to give you some fights that I am looking forward to. We got Carl Moore fighting. He's taking on Majel Razinski. I believe that's how you say his name. And then we got Charlie Ward, of course, and we have Brian Moore. So those are just some staples of Irish MMA. Bellator always makes sure these guys fight when they have a card in Ireland. Now let's move on to the main card. We got Ciaran Clark, who is a really huge prospect. At featherweight, it's a contracted weight of 147.5 pounds. So it's not taking place at featherweight, but we are going to see Clark compete. He's 6-0. He's had some really good performances so far. Moving on, we got Sinead Kavanagh taking on Janae Harding. And these two did fight before. Janae Harding got the doctor stoppage. She landed a clean elbow to Kavanagh's face, and that cut would not stop bleeding, so the doctor stopped it. So let's see how their second encounter goes. Sinead Kavanagh is obviously an all-action fighter. She looks for that KO. Moving on, we have a lightweight bout. We have Peter Queally taking on Bryce Logan. Peter Queally coming off of, a couple really tough opponents. He faced Patricky Pitbull twice and, went 1-1 there. And then in his last fight, he faced Benson Henderson and, just couldn't really get anything going in that fight. Henderson really controlled that fight from start to finish. So Queally, he's getting Bryce Logan, who has not won in Bellator, I believe, yet. He is 0-4. So, Queally getting a guy that's really struggling. So let's see if Queally can get back in the win column. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we have Pedro Carvalho taking on Jeremy Kennedy. This featherweight fight is going to be a very good fight. Of course, Jeremy Kennedy, a great grappler. His last fight was a little weird. He got the victory over Aaron Pico, but Aaron Pico's shoulder, popped out. They couldn't get it back in. So obviously not Jeremy Kennedy's fault at all. He was just doing what he was supposed to do. I don't even think he noticed because he was grappling, Pico for most of that first round. So it's going to be interesting with Pedro Carvalho. I'm really excited to see how these guys clash. I feel like Pedro Carvalho is more of a stand-up guy. So let's see who implements their game first and, see who can get control of this fight. I believe if Kennedy gets down Carvalho multiple times, it's going to be his fight. Kennedy, I believe, a good path to victory for him is to, as I said, get this fight to the ground, really grind on Carvalho and, really tire him out, make him carry his weight. I think that is a good path to victory for Kennedy there. Moving on to the main event of the evening, we have the welterweight world championship on the line. We have the welterweight champion Yaroslav Amosov taking on the interim welterweight champion Logan Storley. This is the second time that these two men have faced, and Logan Storley lost by a split decision. So their first fight was super close. Amosov is 26-0, unbeaten, and Logan Storley is 14-1 with that split decision loss to Yaroslav Amosov. That is his only career loss. I'm very, very pumped that they put this fight, back on again. Obviously, Logan Storley had a win to get this opportunity, but I am very excited that they are fighting again. I'm expecting a very technical fight from both men. Logan Storley's going to look to wrestle, of course, but, he's got good stand-up as well. Don't sleep on his stand-up. And, of course, Yaroslav Amosov, just the story that he has, had with the Ukraine going to war, and, he went back to his home to, join the army and defend his country, which is so admirable. And, just all the respect in the world for him to really try to stand up and fight for his country when he's a professional athlete and, a champion in his weight class. The story is just, you got to watch that video that Bellator posted about Amosov. If you haven't seen that video, go watch it. It's really just an amazing story. His countrymen, his mother hid his belt, in their house, I believe, and he found it, and his fellow countrymen, told him that you would bring us more honor to defend this belt than to fight in this war. And, so he went back to training shortly after that, and just a crazy story. Just my thoughts obviously are still out with Ukraine, with that terrible, terrible war that is going on. But, hopefully he can make his country proud with this performance. And, both of these guys are going to put on one heck of a show. And that is going to do it for this Bellator card. And on April 21st, Bellator 294 will be from Hawaii, and DeAnna Bennett is facing Liz Carmouche for the women's flyweight world champion. I was able to sit down with DeAnna Bennett and have such a great conversation with her. Here is a clip from our interview. To catch the whole interview, go to YouTube and type in the KO podcast with Tyler Russo, and it will pop up. Here is a preview of the interview. Now kind of jumping all the way to present day, you're getting this title opportunity against Liz Carmouche, who you who you went against. So what do you remember about that first fight?
Trust me. That fight is something that's seared into my brain, and not just because I have a 5-inch scar on my butt that reminds me of that fight every single day. It was a tough fight. Obviously, she's a tough competitor. She's been around forever. Tomorrow marks the 10-year anniversary of the first UFC fight for females, which she was a part of. She's a part of MMA history, and obviously it was a tough fight, but I've been doing this for a long time, and I remember being in there with her and loving every single second of being in that fight. It wasn't the most ideal camp. I'm sorry for Sarah Connor, first off. That's my cat.
That's okay. I got a cat too. She was messing up my headphones.
Yeah, she's a little crackhead, and so every once in a while, if you see Sarah Connor go through, I just kind of try and ignore her. And yes, her name is Sarah Connor. So I felt so good being in there in that fight, and I'd worked really hard to get into there, and it was going really well. And the fight, striking and the grappling, was back and forth. Obviously, that's what happens with tough fights. And 90 seconds left in that fight, about 90 seconds left, a little less than 2 minutes left in that fight. I went for a hip switch against the cage and I felt a pop. And I was like, ugh! And I couldn't move. I couldn't move my hip. I couldn't move my leg. And that's when Liz jumped on my back and I couldn't move my hips to be able to defend anything. And then I would go to the hospital, and then turns out I had a hamstring avulsion. So my hamstring at the hip tore 95% off the bone. Not from anything that Liz did, just freak thing, bad weight cut, bad this, like it just kind of happened. And so for the first time in my MMA career, I ended up having to have a major surgery, have my hamstring repaired, make my way back from that. And then that fight is just seared in my brain because, it was going my way, things happened and it ended up like on paper, it shows, a loss for me. But I know what I'm capable of. I know I could beat her, and I know I was up until that point. And so I've thought about that fight every single day since then, just because it's something that I've wanted back. And, it's actually playing out a lot how I wanted it. Cause I was like, okay, well, obviously, she's going to get fights. I know she's going to become the champ, and I'm going to work my way up to that title shot and to, getting my rematch with her. And that's where we're at now.
And that is going to do it for this episode of the KO podcast. To stay up to date with the podcast, the Twitter is the KO podcast with Tyler Russo. The Instagram handle is the KO_podcast. And the YouTube channel is the KO podcast with Tyler Russo. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. Stay blessed. Stay safe. Bye-bye.